I live in a densely packed city-state in Southeast Asia where the vast majority of the population stays in high-rise apartment buildings. Owing to that, perhaps, ghost stories are a rare commodity here. It can be quite difficult for the mind to conjure up any vile spirit when any sudden noise or inexplicable happenings can just be brushed off and blamed on the strangers living around you. Horror belonged only to the unattended and the alone, and not the individuals accompanied by another, annoyed and separated in their apartments only by walls too thin. As such, I do not believe in ghosts, though sometimes I wish I did. I stay on the 9th floor of my apartment building. The only window in my small room is frosted to prevent people from the outside block looking in. Naturally, this meant that I could not see anything outside when my windows are closed, not like there's much to see anyway. My desk, where I do all my work, is directed in front of this window. It was August, which happened to be the ghost month for this particular year in the Chinese lunar calendar. According to the legend, this was the month where the hungry and violent spirits break free from the gates of hell to roam among the living. I cannot tell you how much of the population believed in such superstition, but it was not uncommon to see incense sticks and offerings meant for the dead littering the roadside during this period. Ashes and cider from burning hell notes scattered all throughout the foggy air. Many warnings come from our elders during this month. Do not look up at the trees at night, do not react when you hear someone saying your name in the darkness, and never ever step on the offerings by the roadside. I never really cared. During my evening jog, I accidentally ran over 3 joss sticks stuck in the grass next to some oranges while trying to avoid an oncoming bicycle. An elderly man who witnessed it pulled me aside as I was about to continue off. "You should apologize," he said, pointing at the offerings, now trashed by me. What? Okay. The idea of apologizing to some inanimate objects on the ground for the sake of some superstition I did not believe in was stupid to me. I didn't listen to the old man, and I just continued with my jog. I could feel the glare of the old man burning into my back as I took off. I should have listened. I was typing out an assignment on my laptop when I first heard it. My windows were open to let in the night breeze. Crying. Normally, this would be nothing too unexpected or surprising given the proximity I live with other people in the apartments. However, this was different from the loud wailing of toddlers that come from a distance. This sounded like it was coming from in front of me. It was very faint, barely noticeable. But I could tell it was the sound of a woman weeping. Not loud enough to be significant, but not soft enough to be unnoticeable. It was just at the edge of awareness and perception. It sounded so sad, so full of despair, and so full of grief. I can still hear it in my ears even now. To be honest, it creeped me out a little. Just a little. It was probably one of my neighbors, after all. After a while, I naturally shrugged it off and was able to focus on my work and throw whatever creepy thoughts that weeping elicited to the back of my head. That night, even as I tried to sleep, I could still hear her cries softly reverberating and seeping through the walls around me. I did not believe in ghosts, but I felt strangely afraid. The creaks and sound that I normally did not care for sounded much louder and more startling to me. I laid completely still, afraid to even reach my hand out from underneath my blanket to scratch an itch on my forehead, afraid to even open my eyes, in an irrational fear that I might see the weeping woman looking back at me in the dark. This continued for the next few nights. The same woman, the same weeping into the wee hours of the morning. Though I would still eventually drift off to sleep, sleep was harder to come by. I woke up in the mornings drenched in sweat and completely exhausted. With my sleep being interrupted for so long, I got annoyed. How long can someone cry for anyway? I wanted to put an end to it. One night, I lay there completely unmoving in the dark, the weeping still going on. I could feel the thumping of my heart. Despite every cell of my body screaming at me, I slowly opened my eyes. As my eyes slowly adjusted to the dark, my hand reached out from underneath my blanket and groped blindly in the dark for the light switch on the wall. Click. The lights came on. My room looked just as it always has. Of course. There was nothing to be afraid of. I slid off the bed and took my umbrella leaning by the corner. I raised it and pointed the tip at the ceiling. I was not very sure, but it had to be my neighbor upstairs. I just wanted it to stop. Then, very slowly but surely, I struck the ceiling 3 times. Thump, thump, thump. The weeping stopped. I had done it. It was no ghost after all, just a distressed neighbor. I put my umbrella back and went back to bed. I can finally be at peace. Thump, 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 thump. Something was pounding back at me. The weeping, which is so abruptly stopped before, suddenly escalated to full-on wailing. Thump, 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 thump. The banging and wailing continued aggressively and furiously to a deafening degree. I cursed audibly. Surely this was a major overreaction for just my light tapping. Thump, 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 thump. I got so annoyed and frustrated. I stomped over to my window and I yelled, "Hey, shut up!" I closed my window shut and stood there, heaving breaths. I heard a desperate wailing cry amounting to a scream, another loud bang, and then it just stopped. Do you know the feeling where a noise that you've grown accustomed to just stops? All of a sudden, you can hear the deafening silence penetrating through the air. There was no more weeping, but I still felt a little unease. For the next few nights, I kept my window shut. Although it made it rather humid, it was way better than having to deal with that sick weeping again. And I thought that would be it, that it was over. It happened to be the last day of the Hungry Ghost Month. I was continuing on my assignment when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was directly from my window. Tap, tap, tap. I looked up instinctively, and I froze. There, in the darkness of the night, tapping on my frosted window pane, was the blurry silhouette of a bloody hand. I live on the 9th floor. I did not scream. I couldn't. I merely sat there, frozen in shock, staring in horror at the bloody imprints being left at my window. Despite the blur of my window, I could see that there was something else out there, something that looked suspiciously like a head with long hair, a face with vengeful eyes, the face of a body to which the hand was attached. At that moment, I was just thankful that my windows were closed and that they were frosted, that I could not see any more clearly into the night of whatever horrid monstrosity that lay just behind it. Tap, tap. I have no idea how long I sat there like that for. The elderly man's warning came back to me. I should have listened to him. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap. I'm sorry. I barely let out a whimper. Tap. The ghost tapped at the glass once more, but this time it left it there for a little longer, as if trying to taunt me. I could see it twitching. And then the hand slid off and the figure just disappeared, leaving a straight trail of blood on my window. Thump. I heard one more thump, and then silence. I waited for a while more, and then I heaved a breath of relief. It was 12 a.m. The ghost month is over, but the blood on my window is still there. Ghosts don't exist, not in the form that you think they do. It is a conjecture of the paranoid mind born out of the comforting consolation that evil only exists as an external entity, as an enemy that we can attribute all things that go bump in the night to, an other to blame all our misfortunes and misconducts on. Ghosts don't come in the night or at any specific time or month. They are with us always, coming in the darkness, born out of the black void conceived within every human heart, in the form of silent weeping, penetrating through apathetic walls, the bloodied fingers of our conscience tapping at our window, and the shadows that walk with us visible only under a streetlight. You see, it wasn't a ghost at all. It never was. When I opened my window after sitting there for God knows how long, I saw on my window and my ledge a splatter of blood trailing all the way down to the ground floor where there lay, illuminated only by a flickering streetlight, the broken and bloody shape of the crumpled body of a woman, face still locked in a horrifying show of despair, looking straight up at me. And her blood still dripping, still lightly tapping on my window. The family living above me was arrested that very night for the ill treatment and murder of their domestic worker. They had been beating the woman, deliberately starving and torturing her until that night when they accidentally pushed her out of the window where she fell to her death. She was only 21. When the police came to take my statement, I never told them the whole truth. I never told them how I could hear her weeping penetrating through the ceiling and chose to do nothing about it. I never told them how she thumped back at me with more force as a cry for help. I never told them how she was holding on just by my ledge before her fall, still clinging on for dear life, tapping on my frosted window, begging to be let in. I don't believe in ghosts, but sometimes I wish I did. Hi everyone, Giggles here, just here to say thank you for watching and to thank the long list of my patrons for my recently made Patreon. I know there's not much there yet, and I appreciate your patience while I try to think of worthwhile rewards and Patreon exclusives. So a very special thank you to the long list of my patrons. So Much Heresy and William Dolphin. If you want to add to the list and become a patron, check the link in the description, and don't forget to join my Discord where you can make suggestions for my next improv creepypasta, all made up on the spot. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!